presented by FantasyGuru.com on Better Sports Network.
Monday morning.
What? It's Monday already?
How was your weekend?
Not nearly long enough.
Today's a big day.
What do you mean?
Today is the day we can all go back to work.
You're a weirdo.
Why is that?
I hate Mondays. Mondays are the worst.
Oh, that's optimistic.
I admire your optimism.
So that means it is opposite day.
Nope, it's just
Monday.
But it's also
Showtime.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
Welcome in on a Monday to Lunch Money right here at Better Sports Network. Kyle Alfred Gray Flowers with you. And great news on this Monday morning. We are only 2 days away from the World Baseball Classic being over. And then we won't have to worry about injuries for everybody who's already drafted. Because Ray Flowers, that is becoming a thing now. It's like, who am I going to lose today? Last week it was Edwin Diaz. Today/yesterday it was Jose Altuve. We almost lost Nolan Arenado, but we're told that he's fine. But Ray, we do know Jose Altuve, not for the season, but Jose Altuve going to be gone probably for at least 2 months and maybe longer after getting plunked in the hand on Saturday night.
Yeah, and we said this last week as I'm trying to avoid sneezing here, so I'm going to pinch my nose for a second. Sorry. I don't know where that came from. We said this last week, too, with the Diaz situation. Like, I don't blame the WBC. I know a lot of people are anti. Guys get hurt walking down the street. Guys get hurt in their backyard. Guys get hurt on the practice field. Guys would be getting hurt at spring training. So, it's a bad look because we're talking about high-end guys getting hurt at a world event versus with their team. But, guys get hurt. So it's unfortunate and it stinks for people that have already drafted. But I don't blame the WBC for this like some people apparently are.
Yeah, you can get hit by a pitch in spring training. Maybe you don't have as many inside pitches in games that don't matter. I don't know, but pitches can get away from you. And I'm not arguing that we shouldn't have a World Baseball Classic because of injuries. I will say, though, that players may think twice. Because, Ray, whether I believe it, you believe it, or the world at large believes it, I think a player would look at this and say, well, is it worth it? And they don't play 9 innings in spring training. They play 2 innings and then go play golf. So they kind of take themselves out of that escapade. So you play a bit more in the World Baseball Classic. I just wonder, these are 2 high-end stars. They're going to miss, Diaz is pretty well done for the season, Altuve is going to miss most of the first half of the season. And like I said, it's going to happen in games, but I wonder how players look at it because they're probably, Jose Altuve is like probably not blaming the World Baseball Classic, but thinking to himself, well, man, if I just stayed in Florida and kind of gone through the motions for the last 2 weeks, would I have this injury? And wouldn't I be ready to go for opening day? There's got to be that thought at least creeping into a player's mind.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I am the king of that, like the what could be. And I've worked very hard over the years to try to not be that way because, you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's straight up. You just don't know. He could do everything right and you could still get hurt. You could do everything right to prepare and still have a bad season, right? You could do nothing right and everything goes right on the field. I mean, it's all over the place. The game of what if is something we all do in life. It's something we all do in sports. It creeps in there. Hopefully it doesn't linger because we all have that thought. Hopefully it's passing and we move forward. But yeah, you'd have to think about it if you're the player that got hurt and run the scenarios over in your head. And, you could talk about better fundamentals. Maybe that's the takeaway. Maybe, these guys need to work on better fundamentals with inside pitches and that kind of thing, like with Arenado. But, it is what it is. And I would assume that the players would be able to let it go and focus more on the rehab and what's ahead.
Yeah, well, hopefully you have not drafted, and so you can adjust your board. I will tell you this, Jose Altuve, before the injury, was a top 40 player in pretty well every draft. I pulled up just the last 24 hours, Ray, of the NFBC, and he has dropped to 130th. I think it was 131 is well where Altuve has landed. So that would put him, in a 12-team league. In the 11th round. What do you think about that cost when we have a guy that let's just play it 8 to 10 weeks? Right. I know that's not certain, but 8 to 10 weeks in the 11th round, Jose Altuve.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. It's really tough to judge these guys. I was looking at second base this weekend, obviously, and adjusting the rankings over at FantasyGuru.com. And we also have Jorge Polanco, who apparently that knee is an issue, and he's not going to be ready to start of the season. And you start looking, I was looking at those 2 guys, Polanco and Altuve, because Polanco theoretically should rebound from last year. He should be close to the way he was a couple of years ago. He's a pretty good all-around guy. Altuve is going to give you a better batting average. He's going to steal more bases. He's got a higher floor, I would say, too. So how do you compare these two guys together? And I ended up with them back to back because it's like, you factor this in, you factor that in. When you talk 8 to 10 weeks, again, is it 6 weeks? Is it 12 weeks? Is he back in 8 weeks, but he's not right? He starts out and hits 210 the first month. It's one of those scenarios where you can't reach on Altuve at this point. But I where that early return is with him, I don't have a problem playing that price point, Kyle.
I actually love that price point, and I'll tell you why. Let's say he gets 90 games, which I don't think is far-fetched. 90 games is certainly doable here. You take Jose Altuve in the 11th round. That's pick 130. Let's just say pick 130. We talked about second base a couple of weeks back here on the program and focused the whole week on that position. And at least my viewpoint, when I looked at that position, it's very top-heavy. Altuve was a part of that group of like 4 or 5 guys that I really liked at second base. And then the way I see the position is between, depending on what you think of Gleyber Torres, and I'm kind of lukewarm on Gleyber Torres, you kind of got between like 7 and I'd almost argue 15 at second base, or guys who are, whatever. What I like, though, is some of the later value at second base outside that top 15. One of Ray's favorites is Ketel Marte. I'd certainly be with him on that. You can play the rebound of DJ LeMahieu. You can take a shot on Luis Arraez, hitting 320 again, maybe driving in some more runs with Miami. I love the target, Ray, of those guys covering me for 2.5 months while I wait for Altuve. Mm-hmm. So in effect, the first second baseman I would still take is Jose Altuve.
Okay.
But I'm taking one of these other second basemen fairly quickly. And I'm not going to say that's a plan that I don't care what draft you show up at and who you're drafting with, that will work. You're going to have to see how second base is playing. But if I'm sitting there, let's say, I guess roughly speaking, Ray, we're only seeing 7 or 8 second basemen in the first 130 picks. Mm-hmm. So if that's what you're getting in your draft where, hey, it's playing according to ADP, and is that going to happen? Who knows? But it's playing according to what ADP says. Ray, if I take him as the 8th or 9th second baseman, I'd be fine with that. And that will mean taking him ahead of a Max Muncy or ahead of a Thairo Estrada or Vaughn Grissom. Like, I get that. And I'm not going to have him for 2 months. But I think you can then wait another 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds and get your LeMahieu or get your Ketel Marte. And I kind of love that draft setup. So, what we've seen initially on Altuve, very fair. He should be dropped. But I don't have a problem with the price. A lot of times I'll have difficulty with the price. Say, it's not dropping far enough. But with this injury, I think there are ways to cover yourself for a good 2 months. There's guys around the 20th at second base that can carry you through April, May, and into June, I think.
Yeah, it's a really interesting position, and we broke down this week. We'll be doing outfielders. We've done second base in the past here, and I think it really is an interesting position. And you're totally right that there are a lot of players in this position. I mean, even if you want to go down to DJ LeMahieu, Luis Urias, I mean, these kind of players, Chris Taylor, these guys could fill in for a couple months, and those guys that I just mentioned are dual position, triple position eligible. So, there definitely is a way to piece together second base. If you take Altuve and you say, all right, I'm going 8 weeks, and it takes 10, 11 weeks, and then he returns to being who he is when he's back on the field, you could cover 11 weeks versus 8 weeks. Like, you can still make that work at second base. I currently have Altuve 10th at second base. Okay. And so it's, again, it depends on your league, and do you have IL spots and all that kind of thing. But I think you can cover a couple of months for Altuve and still come out ahead.
Well, and you said if he comes back and plays like Jose Altuve, I will say, Ray, there's got to be that question that even when he's back, is this Jose Altuve? And he has not been the easiest guy to predict from year to year because some years, for many years, it was, he's great batting average, stolen bases. That's Jose. Now, Ray, it's good batting average and really good power. That's what we saw last season. Now, last season was about his best year, like as an overall hitter in about 4 or 5 years. So you kind of wonder, hey, how repeatable is that as is? He's getting into his 30s, all that stuff. But that will be something where I honestly, Ray, I don't want to hear that Jose Altuve is making great progress and is ahead of the time frame. Like, I don't want to hear that. A lot of times we're like, oh, that's great news. But Ray, to me, in this case, that would tell me that Jose Altuve is just wanting to get back on the field as soon as possible. And this is a player saying, yeah, I'm fine. Let's go. And this is a team saying, yeah, well, we'll give him 2 rehab games and throw him out there, to where the thumb may not be right. And again, this is your hand. This is a hitter. This is very important stuff. You know, it's not as easy as the thumb is fine and you're 100%. And that can go for a lot of injuries. But again, your hands are probably the most important thing when you're swinging a bat. I mean, I guess we could all have an argument over what's most important when you make contact. But in terms of swinging the bat, I think your hands are the most important part. And so, Ray, I almost want him to be on the long side of this. Like, even if it's the All-Star break, I'd be fine with it. You know, like Bryce Harper, I don't care that he's coming back early.
Right.
Because that's something I don't need him to throw. Like, if I were needing him to throw and he's coming back early, maybe I'd be concerned. You know, how's that elbow going to hold up? But we don't have that with Bryce Harper. He's going to DH. That's what he's doing. So if he can swing a bat, for me, he's Bryce Harper. But this Altuve injury, even when he comes back, Ray, I would expect him to be a bit different. And I don't know what that exactly is, but my guess is we don't see as much power, and maybe there's a little less stealing going on, just because who wants to go sliding into second base head first when you're recovering from a broken thumb that was just surgically repaired?
Yeah, and it's someone was asking me in the Discord over at fantasyguru.com this morning. And you can still get the product before the season begins. We still got time. All the information's there. They were asking me about Mitch Haniger and what are my thoughts. And it's like, okay, is Mitch Haniger going to play 80 games? Is he going to play 110 games? Is he going to play 130 games? No one knows. Like, I feel pretty good that when Mitch Haniger's out there, he's going to be effective. He's going to drive the baseball. Okay. I don't know what the games played are going to be like. And that's the same thing with Altuve. I truly believe that when Altuve's out there, he's going to be good. Now, that's a personal belief. That's based on history. That's based on his skill set. But I have no idea if, like you're saying, that there's going to be lingering issues here. There very well could be. There very well could be. And like you said, the hands are so important to hitting. And, you know, and that's the risk. And it's the risk with, Rodon. It's the risk with Glasnow. It's the risk with Polanco. It's the risk with Buxton. It's a risk with all these guys. And you just have to decide where you're going to take that risk. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. What's your risk tolerance? Are you one of the people that says, I want to finish in first or 12th? I don't care. Are you someone that, tries to get value and bargains all over the place? Is that how you're going to build your team? There's no way to know with Altuve. And does he come back and his hand isn't right, so he runs more because he's trying to compensate? We don't know. So again, I'm assuming that when he's back, he's Jose Altuve. But again, I'm using the word assumption because that's what it has to be.
Well, and the other feather in Altuve's cap is, like, this is a vet that we know can hit. Mm-hmm. He's a star. Like, the guy has hit from year one pretty well every year. Like, if there's a guy, who are the top 10 hitters in baseball, just pure hitters, Altuve maybe still cracks that list. I mean, if you look at his standards he has posted for the last 7 or 8 years, he belongs on that list. And so, Ray, there's a little bit of betting on history here.
Right.
Like, if this injury happens to a guy who's played 1 year, like, we're going to be talking about Michael Harris in a bit. And I've got a few questions about Harris. I'm not as, like, gung-ho as everybody seems to be on Michael Harris. But if he had suffered this injury, Ray, I would say, I don't know about this. I've seen 1 year of Michael Harris. I already am kind of wondering about approach, about his hit tool, all these things. Maybe I won't make that bet. I'll make the bet on Altuve. Like, because I've seen him hit. He knows how to do it time after time after time. So if I feel the thumb is healthy enough for him to be out there, I'm going to make that bet. Could be wrong, could be right, but I'll make that bet. Now, there are a couple of other things kind of emanating from this injury to Altuve. And again, he was hit by a pitch Saturday night, surgery